Imagine unlocking your smartphone and unknowingly tapping into a 1,000-year-old legacy. It sounds unbelievable, but every time you solve a math problem, visit a doctor, or sip your morning coffee, you're benefiting from ideas pioneered during the Islamic Golden Age. This was no ordinary era, spanning roughly the 8th to 14th centuries. In fact, many foundations of modern civilization were built by scholars of this Golden Age. We often hear about ancient Greece or the European Renaissance, but the Islamic Golden Age is the missing link that connected antiquity to modernity. From the algorithm that runs your computer to the hospital down your street, their legacy endures in surprising ways. We've covered why the Golden Age ended in a previous episode. Check that out in the description for the dramatic story of how this era ended. Today, however, we're focusing on what the Golden Age left behind, the living legacy that still powers our modern world. Stick around to discover how a medieval Golden Age laid the groundwork for everything from smartphones to coffee culture. And be sure to watch till the end for a question we have for you, one that might spark a great discussion in the comments. Let's start with mathematics, the universal language of science and technology. During the Golden Age, Muslim mathematicians essentially invented the language your computer speaks today. The most famous is Muhammad Al-Khwarizmi, a 9th century scholar whose very name gave us the word algorithm. He wrote the foundational text on Algebra, around 820 CE, from which we get the word algebra. Al-Khwarizmi didn't just solve equations. He revolutionized how we think about numbers and relationships, work so fundamental that every time your phone or computer calculates anything, it's using his algebraic principles. In fact, the term algorithm comes from the Latin form of Al-Khwarizmi's name, underlining how integral his contributions are to computing. Another game changer was the adoption and refinement of the Hindu-Arabic numeral system, including the concept of zero. Islamic scholars took the numerical system from India, digits 0 to 9, and made it vastly more practical, formalizing the use of zero in calculations. This might sound simple, but try doing advanced math with Roman numerals, 16, MCMLIV, and you'll see why this mattered. European scholars learned of these Arabic numerals through translations, and by the late Middle Ages they became the backbone of Western mathematics. The Golden Age also laid critical groundwork in geometry and trigonometry. Al-Battani, a 10th century astronomer, refined trigonometric tables and concepts. He introduced new trigonometric methods so precise that every GPS satellite, engineering project, or video game physics engine today owes a debt to his work. When you see modern engineers calculating angles or your phone using triangulation to find your location, they're building on principles Al-Battani perfected over 1,000 years ago. Even cryptography, code breaking, traces back to the Islamic Golden Age. In the 9th century, Al-Kindi wrote the earliest known book on cryptanalysis. He described frequency analysis, a technique to crack codes by examining letter frequencies, effectively inventing the science of code breaking. This was centuries before anyone in Europe mastered such methods. Fast forward to today, every time you send a secure encrypted message or shop online safely, you're indirectly using principles Al-Kindi pioneered in his quest to decipher secret messages. He's been called the medieval world's original cybersecurity expert, using pen and paper instead of computers to unravel ciphers. In short, the Golden Age gave us the mathematical toolkit of the modern world: algebra, algorithms, the numbers we use, trigonometry, and even early cryptography. These aren't just historical footnotes, they are the very foundation of today's digital technology and scientific computing. If you've ever been grateful for modern medicine, a life-saving surgery, a pharmacy's remedies, or a well-run hospital, you owe a huge debt to the medical pioneers of the Islamic Golden Age. At a time when much of medieval Europe still relied on bloodletting and superstition, Muslim physicians were performing medical miracles grounded in empirical science. Their contributions would later guide European medicine and continue to influence healthcare today. Take Al-Zahrawi, Albucasis, a 10th century Andalusian surgeon often called the father of modern surgery. He invented over 200 surgical instruments, many of which look strikingly like the scalpels, forceps, and needles surgeons use now. Al-Zahrawi compiled a huge illustrated surgical encyclopedia, Kitab al-Tasrif, that included drawings of his tools and techniques. When a surgeon today picks up a specialized instrument in an operating room, there's a good chance its design was first conceived by Al-Zahrawi over a millennium ago. From catgut sutures for internal stitches to forceps for delivering babies, many innovations in surgical practice can be traced back to his work. The world's first organized hospitals with dedicated wards, medical schools, and patient records emerged in the medieval Islamic world. For example, the Ahmad ibn Tulun Hospital in Cairo, founded in 872 CE, is often cited as the first modern hospital. It provided care to all patients free of charge, had separate wards for different illnesses, and even a training center for doctors. While ill Europeans were often just tended by monks in monasteries at that time, Islamic hospitals were systematically treating patients, keeping case notes, and training physicians in a structured way. These Bimaristans, hospitals, in Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo and elsewhere became the template for today's hospitals, inspiring everything from the layout of wards to the idea of teaching hospitals affiliated with universities. Golden Age doctors made remarkable clinical advances as well. Al-Razi, Razes, a Persian polymath of the 9th century, is renowned for his clinical insight and experimental approach. He distinguished between smallpox and measles, two diseases often confused before, and documented their differing symptoms and treatments, saving countless lives through proper diagnosis. Al-Razi also introduced the use of distillation in medicine, refining alcohol and other substances to create purer drugs. And then there's Ibn Sina, Avicenna, perhaps the most influential medical mind of the era. His monumental work, The Canon of Medicine, synthesized Greek, Persian, and his own medical knowledge into a comprehensive system. When this book was translated into Latin in the 12th century, it became the standard medical textbook in Europe for hundreds of years, used in universities up to the 17th and even 18th century. Concepts like contagious disease transmission, quarantine to prevent spread of illness, and clinical drug trials have roots, at least in rudimentary form, in Avicenna's work. So if you've ever benefited from evidence-based medicine or a doctor's careful diagnosis, you've indirectly been touched by Avicenna's influence. The Islamic Golden Age wasn't only about abstract science and medicine, it was also an era of astonishing engineering and technological ingenuity. Its inventors and engineers built devices that were centuries ahead of their time, in some cases foreshadowing inventions of the industrial age or even the modern day. Let's meet a couple of these brilliant minds and their creations. First up is Ismail al-Jazari, a 12th–13th century engineer who served a prince in Mesopotamia. Al-Jazari is often dubbed the father of robotics and modern engineering for good reason. In 1206, he compiled the Book of Knowledge of Ingenious Mechanical Devices, describing 50 mechanical inventions with detailed construction diagrams. His most famous creation is the elephant clock, a truly multicultural marvel of a water-powered clock. Every half hour, this elaborate clock would trigger an automaton, a robotic figure, to strike a cymbal and a mechanical bird to chirp, essentially a programmable analog clock that dazzled onlookers. It was also cleverly symbolic. The clock included an Indian elephant, an Egyptian phoenix, Persian carpet designs, and Chinese dragons, representing the diversity of knowledge. More importantly, it was the first clock in history where an automaton moved at regular intervals, a concept basic to all modern clocks and machines. Al-Jazari didn't stop at clocks. He devised automated water pumps, crank-operated mechanisms, and even humanoid robots. One of his machines was a drink-serving waitress automaton, and another a hand-washing station with an automatic flush, basically a 13th century mechanical sink with running water. Perhaps most impressively, Al-Jazari designed a robot band, a group of mechanical musicians that played music on a boat to entertain guests. He even invented the crankshaft and the camshaft mechanisms independently, crucial components for almost all modern machinery and engines. Another visionary was Abbas ibn Firnas in Al-Andalus, medieval Spain, in the 9th century, long before Da Vinci sketched flying machines or the Wright brothers built their flyer. Ibn Firnas dared to dream of human flight. According to historical accounts, he designed wings for himself, essentially a glider, and jumped off a cliff in Córdoba, attempting the first known controlled flight. Amazingly, he glided a considerable distance, and although he crash-landed, injuring his back, the attempt is said to have been largely successful at gliding. He learned from the experience that birds used tails to land, a detail he missed. Ibn Firnas's bold experiment inspired others and shows the spirit of innovation of the age. Finally, consider water management. In arid regions, Islamic engineers developed ingenious irrigation systems, water wheels, and pumps, some designed by Al-Jazari and the earlier Banu Musa brothers, to support agriculture. They built canals and aqueducts that rivaled ancient Rome's, and designed water-raising machines using gears and pulleys to lift water for irrigation or city use. In an age long before GPS and Google Maps, the Islamic Golden Age provided the world with the cutting-edge navigation instruments of the medieval era. These tools opened the door to global exploration. Many historians argue that European voyages of discovery in the 15th and 16th centuries were only possible because of navigational knowledge borrowed, or directly taken, from earlier Muslim astronomers and navigators. One of the most iconic instruments is the astrolabe. While the astrolabe was invented in ancient Greece, it was Islamic astronomers who perfected it and turned it into a sophisticated analog computer for navigation, timekeeping, and astronomy. By the 9th to 12th centuries, astrolabes crafted in the Muslim world could determine your latitude, aid in mapping the stars, predict sunrise and sunset, and even calculate the time for prayers. These were beautifully engraved brass discs with moving dials. Think of them as the smartphone of the medieval sailor. Islamic improvements to the astrolabe made it so accurate and versatile that European mariners eagerly adopted it for ocean navigation. In fact, when Vasco da Gama and Columbus set out across the seas, they carried astrolabes based on designs from Moorish Spain or the Middle East. Then there's the magnetic compass, invented by the Chinese, yes, but it was navigators in the Islamic world who first figured out how to systematically use the compass for seafaring. They understood magnetic declination, the error between magnetic north and true north, and calibrated compasses for long-distance voyages. Muslim explorers refined the compass design and developed navigation manuals, allowing reliable ocean travel. Without those refinements, Columbus might quite literally have sailed in circles or never returned to tell the tale. A giant of geography in this era was Muhammad al-Idrisi. In 1154, working for the Norman king of Sicily, al-Idrisi produced an extraordinary world map and geographical encyclopedia. His map, the Tabula Rogeriana, was so accurate that it remained one of the best world maps for the next 300,400 years. It was essentially a medieval Google Earth on parchment, an incredible compilation of the world's geography for its time. Beyond these, astronomy and timekeeping were highly advanced. Muslim astronomers built observatories and devised tables charting planetary motions and star positions with great accuracy. To sum up, the navigational legacy of the Golden Age is in the instruments and knowledge that allowed humans to traverse the globe. And even in today's era of satellites, the principles haven't changed. We still find our way by measuring angles. Think GPS satellites triangulating signals, akin to star fixes, and relying on accurate maps. Not all legacies are about science and gadgets, some are delightfully everyday. Let's look at a few. Soap and personal hygiene. While soap-like substances existed in antiquity, it was during the Golden Age that true hard soap for cleansing was developed on a large scale. Muslim chemists figured out that by mixing vegetable oils with alkali, like lye, you get a consistent, solid soap that's excellent for cleaning. Coffee culture. Have you ever considered that your morning coffee has a history? The story of coffee as a drink begins in the Islamic world. Legend has it coffee was discovered in Ethiopia, then cultivated in Yemen around the 15th century. Sufi monks used it to stay awake during night prayers. From there, coffee spread through the Middle East and became a social staple. The world's first coffee houses opened in the Ottoman Empire, 16th century, lively places where people gathered to converse, listen to poetry, play chess and discuss the news. In other words, the entire coffee culture, cafes as centers of intellectual and social life, is an Islamic Golden Age legacy. Every cappuccino and latte owes a nod to those early coffee connoisseurs, cuisine and crops. As Muslim traders and scholars traveled, they transferred food products across the known world. For example, citrus fruits like oranges and lemons, sugarcane, and certain types of rice and spices were introduced to new regions. In Islamic Spain, Al-Andalus, new irrigation and farming methods created an agricultural boom. Crops from the east, like sugar, rice, were grown in Spain and Sicily, then spread to the rest of Europe. Education and universities. Perhaps one of the most enduring legacies is the concept of the university. Yes, organized learning existed in ancient times, Plato's Academy, etc. But the oldest continuously operating degree-granting university in the world is the University of Al-Qarawiyyin in Morocco, founded in 859 CE by Fatima al-Fihri. This institution, and others like Al-Azhar in Cairo, founded 10th century, has structured curricula, examinations, and conferred degrees, all hallmarks of modern universities. Art, music, and recreation. Culturally, the Golden Age's influence is subtle but widespread. Musical instruments like the oud, a pear-shaped lute, were perfected in this era and later spread to Europe, evolving into the lute and eventually the guitar. That's right, the guitar you strum has an ancestor in the oud played in Córdoba or Baghdad centuries ago. In literature, works like 1001 Nights, a collection of folk tales compiled during the Abbasid era, have given the world unforgettable stories of Aladdin, Ali Baba, and Sinbad that still inspire movies and books today. In games, popularity of chess in the medieval Islamic world led to the first analytical studies of the game. And let's not forget poetry and philosophy. Persian poets like Rumi and Hafiz, who lived in the later Golden Age or soon after, remain hugely popular worldwide. Rumi is one of the best-selling poets in the United States today. Their humanistic and spiritual insights continue to resonate, showing how the era's cultural output transcended time and place. In essence, the cultural and everyday legacy of the Islamic Golden Age is all around us, often invisibly. The legacy of the Islamic Golden Age is vast and multifaceted. It's not contained to one field or one region. It's truly global and interdisciplinary. From algebra to algorithms, hospitals to universities, astrolabes to coffeehouses, the fingerprints of that era are all over our contemporary world. What's perhaps most inspiring is the mindset those scholars had. A spirit of curiosity, openness, and collaboration. They eagerly absorbed knowledge from ancient Greeks, Persians, Indians, and others, then supercharged it with their own innovations. They truly built the actual foundation that our entire modern civilization stands on, by preserving and expanding knowledge when it might have otherwise been lost. As we wrap up, it's worth asking, what if that golden age had continued unabated? How much more could have been achieved, or how might history have differed? But the good news is, knowledge is never truly lost, it's passed on. And the legacy we discussed is proof of that. Now, here's our question for you, the unanswered question to ponder. Which legacy of the Islamic Golden Age surprises or fascinates you the most, and why? Is it the fact that a 9th century algorithm is running inside your laptop? Or that your hospital's ER owes a debt to a medieval physician? Or maybe something we didn't cover, perhaps a literary or artistic legacy that you think deserves more attention? Let us know in the comments. We're excited to hear your thoughts and continue this conversation. After all, history isn't just about the past, it's about understanding how we got to our present. And as we've seen, our present is deeply intertwined with that remarkable golden age. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe to Chronicle Crafter. The legacy continues, and you're now a part of it.